Hey everyone, this is Steve with another episode of Keep 'em Rollin', and today we are back in that amazing collection looking at Marshal of the Soviet Union uniforms. And all of these uniforms are identified, which is absolutely amazing. You know, you Google the name and you think, wow, look at what this person did, and this is their actual uniform. This uniform was there. That is so cool. So, on that note, I want to share a little behind-the-scenes thing with all of you, and that is that when you listen to this, these videos do sound very serious, and we try to make them very respectful and such, but, you know, we do have an absolutely fantastic time shooting these videos. We have just so much fun, so it's been truly a treat to be able to do this. Before we get into the video, I want to welcome all the new subscribers to my channel and welcome back all my regular subscribers, and just to let you know I will be doing a recent find video here shortly. So on that note, let's get right to it.
We have some items that belong to Kilim Voroshilov, who was a Marshal of the Soviet Union, and he became head of the Soviet Army in the 1920s, and he held that position until 1940. And he still, had quite a bit of influence during the war, but he was demoted because of the battle for Finland. Didn't go very well, but he was still a, very popular protege of Stalin. But on this top row, we have a bust of him in his model 1935 uniform, and we have him pictured on a horse that was erected in Voroshilovgrad, a town that was named after him, but after his death they changed the name of the town. And this is another bust of him in his 1935 uniform, and there's a iron plaque that shows his profile, and some images of him that were popular during his early days in the 1930s. We have a Model 35 Marshal of the Soviet Union Gimnastorka with a belt and cross strap that belonged to Kilim Voroshilov, and the images of him during that time period are mounted on the back wall. And we have a few items on the deck of the display case that show him in uniform also. And there's a Nagant revolver. I think that was dated 1932, which would have been used by someone like him during that period. And to the uniform next to him, we have Model 35 Marshal of the Soviet Union tunic. This is the button-up tunic and visor cap. And what was kind of interesting about that one is the fabric of the cap and the tunic is identical, so it came from the same period at the same time. And the decorations are what he would have like in 1939. He never got a Hero of the Soviet Union medal until after Stalin died, because he had done quite poorly during the Finnish campaign, so that's why the 2 Orders of Lenin is as much as he got. This is another Model 35 Marshal of the Soviet Union uniform. This would be for everyday wear. And the feature about this one, there's holes above the pocket where his screwback badges would be worn, but frequently you see these fellows deciding not to wear their badges that day, so this is kind of a typical example of what one might be like, worn without badges. And down on the deck we have a few other images of Voroshilov during that period. We have an image of Voroshilov in his model 1943 uniform of the Soviet Union. He has the shoulder straps on it by this time, and this was part of a series that was done in Russia to show who all the marshals were. And this one is a 1935 image of Voroshilov. This was a print that was available to the populace to hang on the wall of the various heroes of the Soviet Union. And this is a little booklet about Voroshilov, printed in 1938. And he's wearing his model 1935 uniform. We have a few more items of Kilim Voroshilov. We have a plate that was to honor him that I believe was presented, as a presentation of his personality to people that did distinguish these things for the country. And below that we have a poster of him that was done after 1935, and shows him in red square on a horse. He was a cavalryman, and had a very prestigious history, being a member of the horse cavalry. We have another uniform of Voroshilov's. This is his white model 1935 summer dress. And the insignia on the sleeve is the insignia of Marshal of the Soviet Union. It has the red leading edge on it, the wide red leading edge. And the tunic in front of that is a gymnastorka, also a model 1935 insignia. And the patches on the sleeves are that of a model 1935 Marshal. This is a gymnastorka, model 1935 Marshal of the Soviet Union that belonged to Semyon Budyonny, or Budyonny as the Russians call him. And this also has the Marshal of the Soviet Union insignia on the sleeve with a star, the chevron with a red leading edge. And Budyonny was quite a dandy. He always liked to really be dressed up, and always, had that exceptional look about him. So that was one of the features of his uniforms. The top of this case has some items of Semyon Budyonny in it. There's a porcelain figure that was depicting a mounted cavalryman, which he was kind of the father of. There's a shashka, the sword, is with bayonet, were carried by enlisted men for mounted troops. The cap, the first cap is a Model 40 winter cap, and there's a fatigue hat intended for hot areas like Mongolia. They were frequently used in Mongolia during the conflicts with the Japanese. and the cap on the right is a Ushanka, and that was of an army general or marshal. The blue uniform is of Simon Budyonny, or Budyonny, and this is his model 1940 parade dress uniform of Marshal of the Soviet Union. And the bullion work is, you know, extra high quality, because Budyonny was the kind of guy that demanded that, as well as the sleeve insignias. Also of interest is the cap badge. It's also in bullion, which they normally weren't. They were normally metal with enamel work, but Budyonny wanted one that was bullion. And the star around the collar is the insignia for Marshal of the Soviet Union. That was that star, the Marshal star, was only worn with the parade dress uniform. Well, this is a service uniform of Budyonny, or Budyonny, and this is his model 1940 Marshal of the Soviet Union. And this is also an example of one that's being worn without his decorations, which they did frequently do. And he only has spots for 3 medals, which they occasionally did, that they wouldn't wear all of them, you know, when he would, just the top ones, like 2 orders of Lenin and a red banner. This uniform belonged to Marshal of the Soviet Union, Manilowski, and this was his service uniform. And also notice the ribbon bar, he isn't wearing all the ribbons that he was entitled to. But we've got a couple orders of Lenin and 3 orders of the red banner. And of course they always wore their Hero of the Soviet Union medal if they were entitled to it. And also the insignia on the cap is one of the early versions of the model 1940. It's a 2-piece insignia, of which were done for a period of time when they brought out the 1940 pattern uniform. This is a model 1943 Greatcoat of a Marshal of the Soviet Union. It has his boards depicting that rank with a large star and seal of the Soviet Union. And this coat happened to belong to Nikolai Bulganin. He was mainly a political commissar that was appointed the honorary rank of Marshal of the Soviet Union. This is a model 1940 Marshal of the Soviet Union service uniform that belonged to Boris Shaposhnikov. He was Chief of Staff of the Army throughout the war. He was a very talented individual. He was fired by Stalin a couple times because he clashed with him on, you know, what was the right decision for, you know, a military advance, and Stalin realized that he was right and would have him reinstated. But he was quite an intelligent guy. He was also a Tsarist officer. He was a colonel in the Tsarist army, and one of the few Tsarist high officers to have survived the purges of the Red Army. But he was such an exceptional individual that Stalin didn't have any choice but to keep him on. This is Marshal of the Soviet Union, model 1945. This uniform belonged to Semyon Timoshenko, and he was, in the early part of the war, he was had commanded many thousands of troops. Was battered badly by the Germans, but he still finished out the war in command of various armies. And he also had replaced Voroshilov, because Voroshilov didn't do, very well in the Finnish campaign. But Timoshenko was still an exonerated figure until he passed away. The sword, this is a general officer's sword that was carried by generals and marshals, unless they had a special presentation one, but this is the general sword that was, normally used. This came about in 1940, this particular sword. This is the model 1943 parade uniform of Ivan Konev, who was Marshal of the Soviet Union, very prestigious individual, had lots of success in battle, and it was he and Grigory Zhukov that took Berlin at the end of the war. But this uniform was worn from January of 1943 until early 1945, when it was replaced with the Tsarist green double-breasted uniform. And again, it also has the Star Marshal of the Soviet Union around the neck, which again were only worn on the full dress uniform.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, this is a model 1940 greatcoat of Boris Shaposhnikov, who was Chief of Staff of the Army, and this was worn from 1940 until 1943, and in 1943 they came out with a shoulder board, so this pattern of uniform became obsolete. And the boots under the greatcoat are frequently what Russian generals would wear. It was a felt boot that was had leather portions on it, but it's a traditional style of boot that's been in use in Russia for a very long time. We have a gymnastorka of Boris Shaposhnikov. This is a 1940 pattern, which he wore as his regular service gymnastorka. We have a model 1940 Marshal of the Soviet Union service uniform. This was also belonged to Boris Shaposhnikov, and it's with full decorations that he decided to wear this day.
Go ahead.
The sword is an infantry sword for a general of the Soviet Army. It's being quite a straight blade, and ones that have a slight curve to them are for the cavalry, and also for the general officer's weapon to carry, say for tank people or Air Force. They wore a dagger, and we'll show you a dagger a little bit later. This uniform is also Boris Shaposhnikov, but this is a 1941 pattern semi-dress uniform. The Model 41 came out just before the war started, and it's very much like a parade tunic. It doesn't have pockets on the front, but it does not have the cording that goes around the collar like the parade tunic does. And this was intended to be kind of a semi-dress uniform. And also the visored cap on this one has a bullion insignia rather than a metal insignia that's more commonly found on generals' caps. This is a summer uniform of Marshal Voroshilov, his model 1940 service uniform. This is a model 1940 service uniform of Semyon Timoshenko, and this was his everyday wear up until 1943.
Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Once again, it's just such an honor to be able to see these uniforms in person and to be able to share them all with you. And just so you know, the gentleman who owns this collection, he really does love reading the comments. If you have any questions about what you've seen, if you want to see something up close or what have you, please don't hesitate to ask. And our plan is, once we're all done, is to go back through and kind of compile up the questions and do a video answering things and so forth and so on. So, on that note, thanks for watching, everybody, and this is Steve reminding all of you to keep 'em rolling.